And now to discuss this story a bit more further, we are now joined by the director of Gun Free South Africa. Her name is Adele Kirsten, and she joins us via our Zoom link. Adele, thank you so much for joining us here on the late edition. Of course, the latest coming out from Gun Free South Africa is indeed this lawsuit. Why did you take, the step in terms of actually wanting to hold the state accountable for these guns which are doing the rounds, which are supposed to be in the hands of the police?
Good evening. I guess we didn't take the step lightly. We spent several years looking at what kind of arguments we would need to put forward in order for the courts to agree that we have a case and that the state has a case to answer to. But there are several internal SABC documents that we have, as well as several affidavits, both from scientists as well as from a ballistic expert in the UK. And we have an expert affidavit from Very, who was one of the Project MP cops. And so we have evidence which demonstrates that guns under the direct control of the state that were earmarked for destruction were stolen and then distributed by Prinsloo and by Naidu into criminal hands. And so it's exactly that there are grounds for a class action, because there are a group of people, in fact 261 that we have the names of, but of course this class could be much bigger than that. But we have a group of people who have suffered similar, if not the same, kinds of loss of income, trauma and pain and suffering at the hands of the same wrongdoer. And that would be the police in this case. So the state and the police in particular has constitutional and statutory obligations, also under international law, and is required to keep us safe. They have a duty to keep us safe. But under international global gun agreements or gun control agreements, there's a specific duty of the state to ensure that its weapons under its control, both within the hands of civilians, because there's a licensing system that facilitates that, but that it's responsible to maintain good records, and it's responsible to ensure that guns don't move into the illegal market. This action, the actions of Prinsloo, an employee of the SABC, demonstrate that there was a failure on the part of the SABC to do just that, to secure its weapons.
And Adele, you said that you will be, of course, looking at specifically what took place in 2016 and also how the gun smuggling operation takes place within the SAPS. If you can just take us through what exactly you will be looking at when you take this matter to court.
So, Tatani, we have lodged papers. In fact, they're over 1,000 pages, and we have all the annexures and all the evidence that we are bringing to court right now. So the family affidavits, the expert witness affidavits, they all were lodged in the Western Cape High Court yesterday. What's really important is that Project MP stops in 2016, and that's when it would appear that going after the Prinsloo guns stops. So that's why there are still 1,000 Prinsloo guns out there circulating and continuing to kill and maim. This class action does not stop at 2016. It starts from 2007 and is open to date, which means that if the High Court certifies our class action, that means that anyone who thinks and who can prove that their child or that they themselves were shot and injured with a Prinsloo gun could, in principle, join the class. So this is huge. It's big. It cuts across the country. It's not just in the Western Cape. But we're really just at the beginning, because at this point, obviously, the state has an opportunity to respond to our papers, and that will take a couple of months. And so the reason we talk about 2016 is because that was the period in which we now have data through the Project IMPI operation. And I guess what's important to note is Project IMPI as an example of good policing, of intelligence-driven policing. So this is the police's own investigation, which finds the names of these children, and which we then get access to because of a labor court process with Jacobs and Vieri. And it's at that point that we begin to look more closely at the data and say, there's a potential class action here. And it's taken us 3 or 4 years to actually come to this point where we are confident that the case that the state has a case to answer.
And Adele, I was going to actually ask you that question in terms of the data that was collected from all the people who've been affected by specifically those guns that were meant to be destroyed. How intricate was it for you to put together this lawsuit and, of course, to find the affected parties? You're saying that you were also then helped by the police to actually track down in terms of how these crimes that were committed and how it actually affected these different families.
So if we can break it into 2 sections. So Project IMPI ran from about 2013 till 2016, and it was during this period that these weapons were recovered. Over 1,000 of them were recovered. They were linked to over 1,000 murders. And then there's this list that was developed by the Project IMPI police officers of where there was ballistic testing on a gun that was linked to the case number of a child in most instances that was either shot and killed or shot and injured. And it's then when Project IMPI is shut down and the 2 senior cops who were driving it are demoted, that this is Jacobs and Vieri. They bring their demotion, they dispute it, they challenge it, and so they bring their demotion to the Labour Court in Cape Town in 2017. And that's where they make public this information. We would not have this information unless if it wasn't for this Labour Court case. And so that's where we get the information. But that takes us up to 2016. We then sit with that. We start looking at the names. It's in alphabetical order. It's in the stations across the Cape Metropole. It includes things like Belhar, Atlantis, Bishop Lavis, Elsie's River, Mitchell's Plain. And we start looking through the data and we match it to some of the stories that journalists have written at the time of the incidents. And then in discussion with our lawyers and other people who've embarked on class action, we make the decision that we have a strong case here. And so that's then where the second part begins.
Unfortunately, we are running out of time.
The family.
Yeah, but thank you so much. It sounds like it was a very intricate process and one that really took a number of years for you to whittle down. But of course, that is indeed Adele Kirsten. She is from Gun-Free South Africa. Of course, talking about this class action lawsuit that they will be taking to the Western Cape High Court.